right, guys, we're back. 40 tons here, Justice Row at Benzinga 2025 in Chicago, powered by Canopy HR. I'm Penny Lane, and I am, again, beyond blessed. I'm sitting here with another person in this industry, a man that him and his family mean so much to me and my general well-being. I have epilepsy, I'm sure you all know that, and I'm with Dan Herer, guys. Stop it! Can you believe this? Dan, thank you so much for being with me here today.
Thanks for the invitation
You
to
know
talk to
I
you.
love you so much. God damn it. So let's talk about first the obvious. Your dad,
Okay.
the man. I mean, everyone smoked Jack Herer. Everyone loves Jack Herer, but the medicine behind it and your dad's mission, your dad's cause, and the legacy that you carry on right now. Let's talk about Jack.
Well, it's nice when I meet folks that look to my father as not a genetic, but as a man who was influential in creating the platform that we're all building our companies on, building our futures on, and helping to change the world.
And he did.
And he did, and this community continues that work.
And now you continue that work across the world. So let's talk about what you're doing in Europe, Mr. World Traveler over here.
Well, visiting Europe and being a part of the developing opportunities there has been something that I've been looking forward to being a part of for the last probably 6 years.
Worldwide, baby.
Well, you kind of have to be in order to be in cannabis because, the United States is, it's large, but the rest of the world is much, much larger.
Yes.
And I want to be a part, I want my father's name to be a part of the broader community. Even though his book is in 6 languages and has inspired folks in multiple countries around the world, it's still important for people to continue to connect to that story, to find their voice and speak out in their communities and their countries, to continue changing how we access cannabis, how it is able to participate in building new opportunities and communities for folks to build businesses, homes, families, communities, and health and well-being.
Your dad was so important in my life, at the beginning of this journey 20 years ago. He saw that, the epilepsy that I have, the disease that I have, the need for the medicine. He didn't treat me like a number. He understood when I would cry that, like, tomorrow's a brand new day, we got this shit, And I'm so glad that I get to know you and know your family and really know the real behind the Herer family. But you always are one of my favorite people I ever see at events. Like, I'll stop it all. There's Dan.
I'm always the quiet one. So
you are quiet. You are quiet. But, at the same time, you have, for most people, I think this allure of mystery, and look, people love mystery. Let's be real. So let's talk a little bit about why we're here on 40 Tons, Justice Row.
Wow.
The impact that 40 Tons is having. We have Corvain in the house today. He's right there in white. What does the movement mean to you and the legacy that you're carrying?
Well, I mean, this community and the opportunities and the meanings behind everything that we're doing it's so diverse. There's so many different things that are in need of attention and recognition and light. The stories behind Corvain, the 40 Tons brand,
it's moving.
It's moving, but it's also, it's this tragedy that we're trying to come out of and make the best of these new opportunities. Corvain 40 Tons is a prime example of what you can do to continue to change the opportunity when life has handed you, something less than you would dream for yourself, but then to come out of that and create a new dream and a new path forward and new visibility and new understanding and really give folks hope that their change is real. but change takes a long time.
It does.
And when my father started being an activist in 1972, he was like, it's only a matter of time before cannabis becomes legal, before the truth is out. And then 1980 came around, and 1985 came around, and 1990 came around. And it was really difficult to educate folks on why cannabis is so important. Not why it's so important to smoke and inhale and get high, or why it's important not to go to jail for a fucking plant.
Right.
But how beneficial it is if we use it to its full utility to help all mankind, whether they believe in cannabis or not. Because the same folks that are fighting tooth and nail against cannabis, just as a to shine a light on something, they're driving the same cars, Mercedes, BMW,
Yes.
Bugatti, Range Rover, Audi, all are using parts in their cars that are made from cannabis hemp.
Yes.
Yet the products in their cars that may make their cars safer, to keep them safer, they're at the same time advocating against what cannabis is and what it can do. But they don't realize that their safety is wrapped in cannabis.
For sure.
This is just
For
one of those
sure.
little history things that people just don't recognize, because
It's more than just sitting in a
Yeah.
sesh.
Yeah.
It's more than smoking a little something. I talk about that a lot too. I have a lot of clothes that are made out of hemp, and I get tons of people like, "Girl, that dress is so good." I'm like, "Baby, it's weed."
Yeah. And it's true. When you look at cannabis and being able to use it to its full utility, whether you like cannabis or not, it's going to change your world. It's going to change who you are. It's going to change how you think. Once you realize the truth behind cannabis, once you experience it, whether it's smoking it or using it or wearing it or writing in it, it has the ability to profoundly change your perception. It has the ability that when families see that the medicine of cannabis changes their family's life, they become an advocate for cannabis.
For sure.
When once they were, the adversary of cannabis. Because when it touches you personally, it changes your perspective.
It really does. There was a point in my life, at the beginning of law school, that I was like that guy. I have my meds given to me by my doctor, and I'm Ivy League, and I'm never going to smoke weed, and look at you, dirty pothead over here. And I drove my little BMW, and then got really fucking sick, and oh shit, and it was people like your dad, like Rick Simpson, who was like, this girl is grasping for a cure and is like, dose me up. And it worked, though. It worked. I'm sitting here today because of that. But I was definitely that guy. And now I'm out here, and that's how people know me. And the majority of people, when I tell them, I'm like, no, I've got a PhD from Berkeley in law, and I worked for a major record label for 7 years as A&R, and they're like, what? I'm like, I know, I'm really stony, but, my mission in life changed because I was healing.
Yeah.
That healing came, and it was like, wait, and I can give back in other ways, and just being able to like fully ingrain myself in not industry, but like you said, culture, and keep that culture alive,
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what you're doing with your dad's name, and what you're doing in Europe is outstanding. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, in Europe, there's only certain pathways to real access into the European market as a brand or a pseudo brand, because the medical market in the EU doesn't allow for branding. So
is it like plain package?
It's plain package, nondescript, but but you can market outside of that. You can still build your brands. We've done that through licensing with other companies that are parallel outside of the medical market, outside of the THC market.
Okay.
We've marketed into alcohol beer, where we've used terpenes in a real beer instead of a THC, mock beer.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We have a real beer that has some Jack terpenes in it, just as notes and smells and little taste,
That's so
but it's a
cool.
beer. And I didn't want to create a novelty. I didn't want to be something that somebody just took and, bought something and put it on their shelf and said, oh, I bought a Jack Herer beer. When we started talking to the licensee, is if it's not a real beer, if it's not something that you're going to take and want to share with your friends, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
If it's not something that you want to have on your table and have it be a part of your celebration, I'm not
I
interested.
want Jack Herer beer on my table. Are you kidding
So
me?
we'll be having that in Berlin at Mary Jane. We'll be giving it out, not selling it. And we have other relationships like that, but our big relationship with SoMai Pharmaceuticals is going to get us into 12 countries through his understanding of how to work with us and how for us to work with them through all of the right channels and be hopefully well received within the medical market and the medical community out there and be a part of their lives. I know my father's name has been a part of virtually everything in Europe with regards to cannabis for the last 35 or 40 years.
Yes.
But now to actually bring our brand, my father's name, to where people can define it as this is the Jack Herer brand, not something that's grown in somebody's garage or just something that's a name's put on it.
Yeah.
And that they know that what we produce is something that they can depend on. It's going to be the same in Europe as it is going to be hopefully in New York or California or Canada or Thailand or anywhere else, or Missouri or anywhere else that they consume it. But
Missouri companies.
You said earlier you said the name legacy and that I represent this legacy, but I can tell you, I don't look at me or my family as my father's legacy from the cannabis standpoint, because my father's work, he had us children as just part of his life, but his work was cannabis and changing the world with it. So the legacy that my father left was the foundation that we're all building on. The people that are investing their time, energy,
Yes.
Building companies, building opportunities, creating new technologies. Events like this, events like Benzinga, or events like MJ BizCon, or events like, Spanibus or Hall of Flowers, or
Emerald.
they're all there because of people that were inspired by my father and the people that he inspired. And the next legacy is not going to be me. I'm 62 years old. I'm going to be gone soon. But my father's inspiration and the people that he inspired are going to continue to build what's happening currently. And they are going to be the people that are inspiring the next generations and the next generations. And maybe my father's name will be remembered 100 years from now.
And it will.
Maybe it'll be yours, Penny Lane. Maybe it'll be somebody else's. But that inspiration and that legacy is what I feel he's responsible for. And even I stand on that same platform. I am not that legacy, but I'm working to build on the platform that my father and folks like him, folks like Dennis Perrone, laid down for us to stand on.
I love you so much. You guys, you don't know what an honor is for me to be sitting with him. All week long, guys, I have sat with some of the most amazing people in cannabis, and I'm so blessed and lucky to be able to say that these people are my family and my friends. Dan, thank you for being here with me. We're about to go do a little party with the Beard Bros because, after party. So you guys, this is Penny Lane, Dan Herer, Justice Row 4010s, powered by Canopy HR at Benzinga 2025. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you.
And we forgot to talk about my dad's book, but it's okay.
Damn it! Do you want to?
Yeah, you can. If you guys are editing, then you guys.
We are editing.
Yeah, so we can.
Okay.
We can say
so.
Right. What about your dad's book or whatever?
All right, Dan. I'm so happy to be here with you. Let's talk about your dad's book.
Well, the Emperor Wears No Clothes. At the time that it was first written, it was almost written off because it was too extreme. The information was so over the top, absurd to most people's understanding of their own knowledge of the history of cannabis.
Sure.
That it was like, this can't be real. And it turns out that everything that's in the book is documented. And the book's name is The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which sort of like, it's basically tearing off the blinders and, to all of the lies that created prohibition.
Sure.
And really kind
Reefer madness.
Right, all of it, and it was all a smoke. It was all a smoke screen. It was
all pun intended.
It was all meant to create fear in order to really stop the use of the most technologically disruptive plant or product ever known to mankind. Because if you think about how we live on this planet, plastics, chemicals, gasoline, building materials, clothing, all of these things are dangerous to us as humans, to our environment. And the book says, hey, all of this used to be made from cannabis. And he's like, cannabis is going to save the world or there will be no world. And people thought that was too extreme.
And look at us.
And they literally thought my dad was too crazy for cannabis. But then the book started inspiring people to look at things more and really look into the documentation behind it and realize that it was all real. And it was all even validated by the U.S. government in their own papers that they tried to hide. And so
I've read like so many of those like conspiracy stories.
Yeah.
What is the strain? It's a number, like G13. And so they had this farm in Mississippi, right? This was like back in the day, okay? Nothing was legal anywhere.
Right.
And they were doing testing, right? And so there was a tech that like got fired for something shady, and they put a seed in their pocket and then took it to NorCal.
Oh, wow.
And like that's how G13 came to be.
The University of Mississippi used to do the only cannabis testing or growing for the U.S. government.
Yeah, if you want to see some history, look up G13. It's crazy, it's like your dad, Fat Nugs, work with me here. The people have told me for a long time that I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And then maybe I fucking am, okay?
But you're not wrong.
Right, that's it.
Just,
I've been called a lot of things, but wrong usually isn't one, and that's because people can't dispute it. Because I'll go toe to toe.
Yeah.
We will run it.
When you have information and you have documentation, it's really difficult to circumvent that.
Yeah, when you can back yourself up.
And that's what my dad's book has done, and it's still, in fact, even today, I think it's more relevant in 2025 than it was in 1985 when it was written, because then it was discounted.
Yeah.
Now, everything that my father talked about, wrote about, proved, the technologies that didn't exist in 1985, most of them exist today.
He was
Battery
like the weed Nostradamus.
Don't give him that much credit. Even if he's gone, his head would still be growing.
I know, but I love
He'd be
him
like,
so much.
I did that. No,
But he did do that. That's
did.
the thing. He did do that, and he was a game changer, a door kicker. I'm a big fan of door kickers out here. And he wasn't afraid to blow a whistle on bullshit.
No, he called it straight out.
Yeah.
And if you really want to have an understanding of what inspired the cannabis movement outside the fact that people wanted to not go to jail for smoking a plant that they loved, go to Amazon, get The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Herer. It's available in print to order, or for $9.99 you can get it in a digital download that's interactive. And when I say interactive,
Cool.
I mean as you're reading about who my father was, there's a blue hyperlink. You can hit that, and it'll take you right to a 58-minute documentary. When you're reading this section about how the U.S. government legalized cannabis during World War II, it'll take you to a hyperlink that the U.S. government made a movie about the benefits of cannabis during the war in order to help beat the Germans and the Japanese and become victorious. And they made a film called Hemp for Victory. All of this is documented. All of this is hyperlinked throughout the book, including testimonials, new evidence, all kinds of news stories that are part of The Emperor Wears No Clothes. So as people are starting to really understand what cannabis is in their community, what it means, please go back to the history of cannabis, have an understanding of where this all started, gain your voice, gain your confidence in what this plant is, stand up in your communities, and continue to fight forward.
You heard it, you guys. Go to Amazon.com, get your copy. Why not be gangsta? get a print copy, and while you're waiting for it to get to your house, fuck around with that digital copy, because that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get that digital copy because I just want to play with it. Go ahead and do that. And wears no clothes. Jack Herer. You guys, it's been a pleasure. Dan Herer, you're my favorite. I'm gonna see you in a little bit, baby.
Yes.
All right, that's a wrap.